Fuck you.
Ga-da-da!
Really?
Yes.
What's wrong with just fuck you? What's the whole god da 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 da? Next thing I know, you're gonna throw up the finger and go Cobra la 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 la.
Oh, now I know what I'm doing next time, though.
Fuck the world entertainment. It sounds right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds great.
Rolls off the tongue very
Fuck
nicely.
the world entertainment. We are back. It is time for Inside the Ropes because tonight was a big night in the boxing world and a big night in Fuck the World entertainment world because I got these two morons to actually sit down and watch a whole night of boxing.
Oh, please. We watched Lomachenko Rigondeaux with you.
That wasn't a whole night. That was like the first like
We
15
still- we
minutes.
still watched.
That wasn't boxing. That was Lomachenko beating up on a heavy bag that happened to move. So tonight was a pretty big night for boxing. You know, Showtime and HBO both had main cards going on.
And they were both pretty good.
Showtime's card was definitely the bigger card tonight,
Oh, for real.
just because of the main event. So Showtime had Andre Dirrell defending his interim title against Jose Ustagi, and if I messed that up, I'm sorry, but you know what?
Ustagi.
Fuck you. Get a normal name. Okay.
Ouch.
And then in the main event, you had Deontay the Windmill Wilder defending his portion of the heavyweight title, the WBC title, against Luis King Kong Ortiz. And then over on HBO, you had Dimitri Bivol in what was his, I believe, his 12th professional fight,
13th.
facing Sullivan Barrera, a guy who, unless
Tonight marked Bivol's 13th fight.
unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Barrera is a guy who's kind of been circling the title picture at light heavyweight. He's been one of the top contenders there for a while now. Everybody's been kind of wondering when he would actually get his shot to maybe lay claim to being the best light heavyweight in the world. He hit a speed bump tonight. And then in the main event, you had Sergey Kovalev going in there and fighting
Looked like you.
Igor
Mikhalkin.
Mikhalkin.
Macaulay Culkin's cousin. Mikhalkin. Okay? That's what I'm calling the fucker. I don't care what his last name is. So we'll start with the HBO card first, only because the Showtime card's going to need a little bit more attention.
Yeah.
So you had Dimitri Bivol against Sullivan Barrera. Going into this, I think if you're a boxing fan, you knew what Barrera was about. He was a guy with a lot of tools in the shed. Very, very good boxer. He had a lot of different ways to beat you. He could come forward and put pressure on you. He could kind of switch to that boxer-puncher mode, using his jab more and stuff. And he could also get defensive on you and try and counterpunch. There was a lot of hype around Bivol going into this fight and a lot of questions. You know, only 12 pro fights. Was he ready for something like this? You know, if the fight went 12 hard rounds against the top light heavyweight, was he going to be okay? What about if he got cut? What if he got hurt? What if he was knocked down? All these kinds of questions that go in when you got a young fighter who people feel like is kind of being pushed a little too quick. And I mean, only 12 pro fights. This was a pretty big jump up in opposition for Dimitri Bivol. But I got to say, if you were watching this fight tonight, this kid passed every test with flying colors.
Yep.
I mean, he outboxed Barrera. He outfought Barrera. He was cut early in the fight, and it was a pretty... excuse me, my throat's bothering me, but he was cut early in the fight, and it wasn't as bad of a cut as it could have been, because it was just far enough off the eye to where it was rolling down the side of his face rather than right into the eyeball. But yet it was still a cut. It was still adversity he had to overcome. And like I said, we all knew coming into this that Barrera was a very gifted, very tough fighter. A lot of skill. Bivol just, he out everything them tonight.
Yeah.
He was the tougher guy. He was the better boxer. At times, he was coming forward, applying the pressure. And when it looked like maybe Barrera thought, okay, well, I can't let him do that. I got to pressure him. And that'll throw him off his game. Nope. Bivol adjusted and started counterpunching and picking him off. And
I remember we were waiting for the Ortiz and Wilder fight to start. We switched over. They were still doing their in-ring stuff. We turned back, and Bivol had a freaking shiner the size of like a.
He had a huge knot on his head.
That was something else
right on his head
too about this fight. There was a lot of headbutts.
Yeah.
I mean, they were all accidental,
but still a lot.
But there was still a lot of them, and they were leaving their damage on both guys' face. I won't say this was a back and forth fight because it wasn't. I mean, Barrera had his moments, that's for sure. But Bivol pretty much controlled this entire fight. And then in the 12th round, he finally opened up a little bit more, and Barrera was a little more tired, and Barrera got tagged. He got caught, and he was out. So Bivol gets the win, 12th round knockout. And at this point, I think that kind of win against the guy who was supposed to fight, or at least had the opportunity to fight, Kovalev twice now, and turned it down both times. So I think because of who Barrera is and who he was being pushed to fight already, this is going to put Bivol in that conversation. And I would definitely love to see him fighting any one of the guys at the top of 205 right now. And no, I'm not talking about the cruiserweights in WWE. I just said it wrong, too. I said 205. That was your fault. At 175.
my fault?
Correct myself here. At 175.
God, who would want to watch that anyway?
Which is the light heavyweight division in boxing. And we know it's not going to be Adonis. I fight once a year, Stevenson, who's supposed to be the champ in that division. But, you know, hey, whatever.
Shit happens.
He's going to fight Badu Jack. It makes sense for him to fight Kovalev next. They both fought tonight. They should both be ready to fight again at about the same time. Kovalev took a little less punishment, so he'll probably be ready a lot sooner than Bivol will. But it would make sense for those two to get matched up next. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Kovalev and Mikhalkin, this fight was... Listen, Mikhalkin showed he was tough as fuck.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
He came to fight. He was a very good boxer, very slick, landed a few shots, but it became very clear very early in this fight that while Mikhalkin could hang with Kovalev on a boxing level, the power difference was tremendous.
Yep.
When Kovalev landed, it did damage. When Mikhalkin landed, it made Kovalev want to hit him even more. It just kind of pissed Kovalev off.
Mikhalkin had a fucking gash. It wasn't a cut. It was a gash. Like, you could see it, like, it opened.
It was a
It was a
gash
fucking hole.
right across the cheek, one on the nose.
And it just kept bleeding.
And not only that, on top of that, right below his eye, it was starting to swell up. So even though it was a cut, it was starting to swell up too.
Doctor called him over, said he was fine at first.
Next time,
Round continued.
Kovalev
At the end
landed
of
a
the
few
round-
more clean shots, is what happened.
At the end, toward the end of the round, Doctor came over again, looked back and said, "No, it's over."
Yeah, he showed a lot of heart. He
did.
showed a lot of toughness. He hung in there. He fought his heart out.
He also showed how to take getting hit in the face like a.
He was overmatched. He was in there with a guy who hits like a fucking freight train. You know, I know Kovalev's coming off not coming off, but people still bring up the Andre Ward saga with him. Everybody, Andre beat him. First of all, I'm one of the people that doesn't believe Andre beat him twice. Obviously, the second fight, Andre knocked him out. Shit happens. I still believe Kovalev won the first fight. He's definitely still trying to redeem himself a little bit from that. And, you know, a lot of the questions is Kovalev maybe coming out of his prime? Is he getting a little too old now? You know, he definitely got hit a lot more tonight than he would have a few years ago. And a guy like Mikhalkin took him maybe a few rounds more than it would have a couple years ago to get him out of there. But he still looks like a good enough version of himself to give just about anybody a problem. Now the question is, you match up him and Bivol. This is, again, real simple. Is it going to be the power of Kovalev or the pure, unbelievable boxing ability of Bivol. He's a very accurate puncher, got a high work rate. It would be an interesting matchup, and we'll just have to wait to see what happens. But personally, I'm glad to see Sergey get a win. He's a guy I love to watch fight just because he just really seems to enjoy fucking people up. It seems to bring a genuine happiness into his life, you know. So the light heavyweight division is still kind of wide open since Andre Ward walked away from the sport. I know everybody will say, well, no, Adonis has been the champ in that division forever. Yeah, and he's fought nobody and done nothing with it. I hope Badu Jack knocks him the fuck out. But that was pretty much it for the HBO card. Now we'll head over to Showtime's card. Showtime started with a rematch of a fight that had a controversial ending the first time out. And it was Andre Dirrell against Jose Ustagi. First time these two fought, it was a hell of a fight, back and forth. But Ustagi landed a few shots after the bell throughout the fight. He got a couple warnings from the ref. And then in round 8, he landed just a little bit. I mean, the way people made it sound was like it was like an hour after the bell rang. The bell had just rang, and like, you know, ding, and then right after that, boom. And he knocked Dirrell out. And the referee disqualified him for it, and that's when all hell broke loose, because Andre Dirrell's uncle then went over to the corner, pretended like he was talking to Ustagi's corner man, and then sucker punched Ustagi, and continued to keep swinging. And all hell broke loose. Dirrell's uncle had a warrant out for him. He had to turn himself in. So leading into this, there was a lot of hype around the fight because of that and the way it ended the first time and how good the fight actually was the first time around. Dirrell switched trainers. He was working with Virgil Hunter now. I know I'm probably going to catch a lot of flack for saying this, but to me, Virgil Hunter is one of the most overrated trainers in boxing today. Okay? He is one of the most overrated names I've ever heard. I leave it up to you guys. In the comments for this video, besides Andre Ward, please go ahead and tell me some Virgil Hunter success stories. I'm waiting to hear it. Because as far as I know, those guys go to him thinking he can revitalize their career, and they continue to get knocked the fuck out. So, I think Virgil's incredibly overrated. Ustagi came into this, a young fighter in his prime. We all knew about the punching power. The first fight with Dirrell, he definitely showed us that he could box more than we kind of thought he could going into it. And this time around, while it was still an entertaining fight, there was no give and take really. There wasn't any close rounds. Ustagi pretty much dominated this fight.
Yeah, I had him up several rounds in most of the fight. Like I had him up let's see, I had him up up till round 5, I think.
Well, you see, that's what happens
when
Dirrell,
I think.
Ustagi.
Dirrell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dirrell had one. The thing was with Dirrell, Dirrell that I found a problem with.
Well, you see, that's what happens when Ustagi is using both hands and Dirrell's just using the
thing is, I was expecting him to use the jab to set up for a left uppercut, because every time he went for the right jab, Ustagi got down low, and that would have been a perfect. He had thousands of opportunities to hit the left uppercut, which he only did twice with that. But he was more focusing on setting up a knockout punch than he was really just trying to box.
To me, it seemed like Dirrell was gun shy, and he was probably gun shy because Ustagi's punching power. Coming in, the reputation behind Ustagi was that he knocks people unconscious. And he had done it to Dirrell in the previous fight, even though it was a little after the bell and it caused him disqualification. I'm sure that sat in the back of Dirrell's head that, hey, I was fighting this guy. The bell had just sounded, yeah, but I was still had my wits about me, and this guy landed a hard enough shot to put me to sleep. So I'm sure that was there. Ustagi dominated this fight, and then I think it was in between rounds 8 and 9. Because they ruled it, yeah, it was. Because they said they officially ruled it TKO with 2 seconds left, with 2 seconds gone in round 9. So it was the beginning of round 9, basically, because... And there was something up in Dirrell's corner, too. It was weird. They kept arguing with each other. Virgil Hunter wasn't getting in the ring a lot. It was a weird situation, but Virgil's yelling at him from the outside, saying, I'm going to stop the fight. You got to show me something. I'm going to stop the fight. I'm going to stop the fight. Dirrell said no. Virgil said, I'm going to give you one more round. The bell sounded, signaling the start of round 9. And then the next thing I knew, the ref walks over because the doctor got up on the apron and they're waving off the fight. So maybe Virgil changed his mind, or maybe the doctor saw something in Dirrell he didn't like.
Dirrell was pissed too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened. I just know that Dirrell's corner did not seem prepared tonight. There was a lot of confusion going on. Dirrell didn't look like his heart was in the fight. He didn't look like he was willing to exchange with this guy. And because of it, Ustagi got the win. Plain and simple. He was the hungrier guy tonight with something to prove. And he now sets himself up at 168 to kind of, in a division where there's no real, after, James DeGale getting beaten by Benavidez, everything's kind of wide open right now. So Ustagi kind of puts his name there as one of the guys to watch out for. Takes us to the main event of the night, period. I don't care what channel you were on. This was the main event for boxing tonight, period.
And it fucking delivered.
Oh, fuck.
It was Deontay Wilder defending his WBC title against Luis King Kong Ortiz. Ortiz had been waiting for an opportunity like this for a long time now. Unfortunately, it came probably a lot later than it should have, but whatever, man, it's boxing, shit happens. And from pretty much the second round on, the first round was a little boring, but this was a war between these two guys.
Mm-hmm.
And while Wilder had his moments in round 5, and for the better part of this fight, Ortiz was really controlling and dominating Wilder.
Yep.
I don't care what the fuck any Wilder fangirl says. Ortiz was giving Wilder a boxing clinic.
And for a while, he was eating a lot of them big right hands that Wilder is known for.
He got caught in round 5. He got dropped.
Yep.
He survived, came back, and dominated rounds 6 and 7. 7, he had Wilder in so much trouble, I thought the reign was over.
Mm-hmm.
I said, man, Wilder's in a lot of trouble here.
Hell, all of us were on our feet.
Ortiz made a big mistake in round 7 to me.
He wasn't chasing after him enough. He wasn't putting up...
I don't think it was all that. I think it was more, number one, he was allowing Wilder to keep himself on his feet by leaning on him. It's an old tactic by fighters. You get hurt, you're wobbly-legged, you lean on the other guy. That way they have to carry your weight. And they're getting even more tired now trying to finish you with your weight leaning on them. And he kind of was really letting it shine. I mean, I know he was trying to finish the fight, but when you're that big and you're fighting against a guy like Wilder who can really, even if he loses 11 rounds in 3 minutes or 2 minutes and 50 seconds of a fight, all it takes is that one shot to land and then the fight's over. So, he kind of, he gassed himself out in round 7. He really did, because after round 7, this was a bit of a different fight. Wilder, again, round 8, he was definitely tired still, definitely gassed. Round 9, though,
is where Wilder started to really pick himself back together.
He started to come back together. Towards the end of the round, he landed a couple of clean shots.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe round 10 was it. Yeah, it was round 10. And they traded big shots up against the ropes. Wilder just got a lot more behind his at the time. Ortiz was rocked. Wilder got him down. Ortiz, to his credit, was able to get up, keep fighting, but he was definitely hurt, and he was gassed at this point too.
Mm-hmm.
There just wasn't enough left in the tank to keep picking himself back up. And Wilder got the TKO win. Congratulations, Deontay. This was definitely the toughest test of his career.
Definitely.
Definitely the best fighter he's ever fought. However...
I mean, you're so used to fighting bums, you don't know what a fucking real fighter actually looks like.
However, I don't want to say this the wrong way. I don't want to take away from what Wilder did tonight. Because you're impartial as a guy who commentates on shit and stuff. Wilder won a big fight tonight. Huge fight for him. He beat the best opponent he's ever faced. He found a way to get the win, which was the way he always gets the win. Unloaded that big right hand, hurting a guy, and then swinging like crazy to just get the finish. Okay? But you take away rounds, I'm almost positive it was round 5, and round 10 where he got the finish. Take those 2 rounds away. And rounds 1 through 4 and rounds 6 through 9 pretty much were all Luis Ortiz.
I only had Wilder on 2 of those rounds. The rest was all Lewis.
He was...
And you could tell on Wilder's face.
He was the better...
He had no idea what the fuck
he lost his composure for a while.
He was the better boxer tonight. He was the better fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Wilder, like I said going into this, Deontay is not a very good boxer. He's not very fundamental. He makes a lot of mistakes. He leaves himself open to be countered. Ortiz proved all that tonight. He was countering Wilder. It made Wilder gun shy at certain points. He was getting countered so much. Okay? But like I said going in, there was one big difference that Wilder always has in his corner. And it's that right hand. It's the power that Deontay Wilder has. It's the kind of knockout power that he doesn't even have to really land clean. He's landed, grazing shots on people and knocked them down. And that's what saved him tonight, because for the better part of this fight, he was losing. He was getting outboxed by Ortiz. His reach wasn't helping him because Ortiz, by some weird anomaly in the world, had a longer reach than Wilder. He was getting... Every time he tried to throw something, Ortiz was on him, countering him. He was working to the body. Let me tell you something. Wilder should be very... I think Wilder's going to know what happened tonight, and he's lucky he did get the finish in round 10. Because had he have thrown that many shots and not gotten Ortiz out of there at that point, and Ortiz recovers for round 11, Wilder would probably have been in a lot of trouble. Because Ortiz was working to the body, he was countering well. It would have been very interesting had this have gone to the cards. Because Wilder had 2 huge rounds. The knockdowns, everything else. Had we have made it to the cards, though, I'm pretty convinced that going into round 10, it was 7-2. So you get the knockdowns in round 10 and everything else. 7-3 with it was probably more like 7-6 overall at that point, because you got to count in extra points for knockdowns and all that stuff, and it gets weird. But Wilder was probably only down by a point or 2 at that point. But had we have gone the last 2 rounds, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened. And I would have loved to have seen the scorecards to see, if we got a fair shake, if we got a real decision. But hey, Wilder got the job done. It's what he's supposed to do. I still firmly believe that if he does this bullshit against Anthony Joshua, he's not winning that fight. He got exposed tonight in more than one way.
Yep.
As you were saying after the fight was over, that Wilder it's not a matter of winning, but he more or less really survived the fight.
That was it.
He did.
You could see on his face at certain rounds during the fight, he had to look like, if I don't come up with a new strategy, I'm fucked.
And I know.
While he was thinking of that new strategy, Luis was really gaining on the
And
it
sounds weird to say that somebody survived when he got a knockout win. Mm-hmm. But that's really what happened here. Wilder was in a lot of trouble in this fight. He was getting beat.
And you could see it all over his face.
He definitely looked gassed. He looked out of it at times. And all of a sudden, he uncorked the right hand that hurt Ortiz, and this was his window. This was the last chance he was probably going to get to get out of there with a win and keep his title. And to his credit, he did. He did exactly what he had to do at that moment to get the win and get the hell out of there. Do I think he's going to rush into a rematch with Ortiz? Absolutely not. I don't think he wants to see Luis Ortiz ever again. Now, Wilder did say before the fight that he had been sick in camp, and I did say more than once.
He's probably going to use that as an excuse.
That he was probably going to use as an excuse. And he didn't look right during the fight. He really didn't. He didn't look like himself. He didn't look like the usual Deontay that we're all used to, which still isn't that pretty in the ring. He makes a lot of mistakes, but he's still more energetic than he was tonight.
Well, it could be the...
Was that because he was sick, or was it because he was facing somebody that good that he was making Deontay look that bad?
I am sticking with my opinion on it. He's fought bums, with the exception of Bermain Stavern, which was a semi-bum, and then a guy that really lives boxing. And he just didn't know what the fuck to do. He knew that he wasn't going to go down like every other guy, and right after he ate the first right hand, right after Luis ate the first right one, and he stood up, and he's just standing there, not on the floor, I believe that's when Deontay Wilder knew, shit, so I can't win that way. Fuck.
But this was a hell of a fight.
It really was.
It really was.
It was a
hell of a fight. And it's probably an early candidate for Fight of the Year right now. I know we're only a few months into the year, but still.
It was an awesome fight.
Heavyweight division fights like this, they don't happen all that much. Fights where we get to see a lot of back and forth, and heavyweights hit so hard that usually when you're down, you're not really getting up. This kind of mirrored Joshua Klitschko in a lot of ways. Lots of back and forth, lots of give and take. Yeah, I still, like I said, congratulations, Deontay. We'll have to wait and see now, because on March 31st, that's a Saturday, right? Yeah. On March 31st, Anthony Joshua will face Joseph Parker in a unification bout. It'll be interesting to see that fight. We'll have to wait and see who gets the win there. And then all the talk is going to be, is it whoever won that fight against Deontay Wilder now? Have to take into consideration a little bit rematch clauses. There's titles on the line in that fight. So I can almost guarantee that whoever loses has it in the contract that they get a rematch for their title. But we'll have to wait and see. I still stand by it, though. If Anthony Joshua is the man standing at the end of him and Parker, I don't see Deontay Wilder beating Anthony Joshua. The only chance I see that he has is landing something big and knocking Joshua out. Everything else sides up for Joshua. And I think it was proven tonight. Like I said, congratulations, Deontay. You got the win, and you got the win pretty much exactly the way I said you would get the win if you found a way to win. You would find one moment in the fight to land that big right hand and get him out of there. Because besides that, you got dominated tonight. Ortiz was clearly the better fighter for most of this fight. So, getting in there with a young, in his prime, Anthony Joshua, who is like a lion right now, I don't see you walking out with the win. I think Wilder needs to make changes to his camp. He needs to get somebody in there who's going to tell him what you're doing in there is wrong most of the time. Your footwork is wrong. You don't use your jab enough for a guy your size. You swing too wide for a guy your size. You should be shortening up and straightening out your shots. Nobody would ever get inside of you. So we'll have to, I don't think he's going to do it. He seems to be comfortable with his team. So until somebody knocks him out, probably, I don't see him changing anything. But after March 31st, it'll be interesting to see where we go from there. I've heard a lot of things already. I've heard that Joshua and Wilder is next. I've heard that Joshua is looking to come here and fight in his next fight, but that it's against Dirrell Big Baby Miller. So we'll have to really wait and see, you know. But overall, it was a great night of fights. Nothing but stoppages across the board. We didn't go to scorecards once tonight.
Nope.
So it was a lot of fun. And it was really the first big weekend of boxing we've had since the new year really kicked off.
Yeah.
So it was fun to sit here and watch the fights. But that's pretty much it for the night.
Yep.
So we are done. Obviously, we'll be back on the 31st to talk about the Anthony Joshua fight when it's over. I'll finally get him to watch an Anthony Joshua fight. And him. So until then, to all you Wilder fangirls who I'm sure are going to go on there and say now he's the greatest of all time, fuck you boys and girls.
Gratata.
And have a nice night.
Gratata.